It is with great pleasure that I ask you to help me welcome to the Wisconsin Veterans Museum, George Banda.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Beautiful weather out there, by the way. My name is George Banda, and I am a combat medic. Somebody would ask me or say to me, "You were a combat medic?" I said, "No, I am a combat medic. Always will be." It's had such an impact on my life that I will always be a combat medic. And let's start with the first line. Here, the early years, I needed to tell you about who I was. Wasn't always a combat medic like I am now, and where I came from. Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I was born here, but raised here. And I love Wisconsin and the Packers and the Brewers. Born in that house there, it's kind of similar to where I was born. It was a flat, and we lived in the back of a house it looked just like this. There was 8 of us, 3 sisters and 5 brothers. So in a 2-bedroom place, so it was pretty tight, but we didn't know any better. We were poor, but didn't know we were poor. Although we had a wonderful life, and loving parents, fought with my brothers and sisters all the time, but love them dearly, and we're very close today. In high school, boys tech, Trojans. Went through high school. For me, boys tech was fun. A little bit of studying, but mostly fun. They actually had to throw me out of high school because I loved it so much I wanted to stay. So that was my early life, high school, having great friends there. Still have those friends, in fact. In fact, I went to the Army with some of them. Fort Campbell, Kentucky. In January, Fort Campbell is cold. There's a snowy and sleet, but it was quite a transition from civilian life to a military life, especially in the Army, where you're told and commanded everything. How you're going to look, your haircut, what you're going to be wearing, boots, pants, underwear, and a certain color, green. And it was, again, it was pretty traumatic for me, I guess. I hate to use that word, but it was just so different from civilian life that had a little tough time with it for a little while, and then finally kind of got accustomed to it and just said, hey, whatever happens, happens. And just go with the flow. And that's the best way to do boot camp, and just go with the flow, because if you start to fight back in boot camp, they push back and you push back harder. So definitely want to go with the flow. And then you make friends. I made a lot of friends there. One thing about boot camp is that you start meeting people from all over Wisconsin and all over the country or the Midwest, and made a lot of friends in boot camp. So it, again, was challenging, but went with the flow and made it out. 8 weeks of boot camp. I've gone back to Fort Campbell for the reunions with 101st Airborne Division Association. So if any Eagles out there, please make sure to join that association. It's great. Get a chance to be with the Eagles again. After boot camp, so the last week of boot camp, you are told what your MOS is going to be, what you're going to be specializing in, and that for me and a dozen other guys, and didn't know what a medic was. And in fact, nobody knew what a medic was. Some people were guessing, I think you work in a hospital. Well, that wasn't the way it went. At Fort Sam Houston, we got there early, so they sent us, there was a dozen of us that was sent to leadership training school. because because we got there early, there was at least 300 soldiers that were going to be coming to train at Fort Sam Houston to become medics. And they didn't have the cadre there. A lot of the cadre was serving in Vietnam. So they needed people to kind of keep an eye on these guys that were coming in and keep it in line and in order, so they trained us to be leaders. So I 3 weeks of leadership school, and then 300 new guys came in, and we tried to keep them all in line, which was very difficult to do. Trying to keep all these guys in line and trying to make sure that they were learning what they needed to learn to be a medic, to be a good medic. One of the things about Fort Sam Houston, the instructors were awesome, were amazing. They were extremely good, or more than good. They were exceptional. Exceptional in the way they trained us, the way they talked to us as adults, not like boot camps. So you start to learn and you start to realize where you're going to be going most likely. And that was Vietnam. But again, I can never say enough about the instructors there. They were so good. But the other thing is that you have to apply yourself. They're teaching you, and they're teaching you some very important things. But you have to apply and learn. I mean, really learn what they're teaching. The trauma dressings, the blood pressure, giving IVs. You know, I didn't know what an IV was. And he said, okay, stick that needle in that guy's arm and do it correctly. And now you have to get a volunteer. Okay, but Frank, come on over here. Let me stick this needle in there. And then he would do it on me, and we would practice like that for about an hour, giving each other. Again, you have to apply yourself, because if you didn't learn what they were teaching you was extremely important to save lives. And some of these lives you're going to be saving were going to be your buddies, your friends, people that you learned to love. They were going to be your brothers. And that was going to happen in Vietnam. Thanks. But before Vietnam, I decided I've always wanted to do this, was to be a paratrooper. And I got that from my uncles who had gone to World War II, and one of them was a paratrooper. And he had talked about being a paratrooper and how exciting it was, how much fun he was having, and all the guys, and jumping out of an airplane. And I said, oh, yeah, I like to do that. I want to do that. That sounds pretty exciting. So we went to Fort Benning, Georgia, 3 weeks of training. I was never so scared in my life. You start to think, why? What was I thinking? Here I was, going through the training. The training was, again, fantastic. Again, the instructors were very professional. I mean, they were hard on you because they wanted to get you in shape. So you're running 3, 4, 5 miles a day, every day, and up hills and down hills, and then doing the push-ups and everything else, but also repeating the PLF, parachute landing form that you had to learn. And it was kind of beat into you. This is how you land. This is how you must land. If you don't land like this, you're going to break something. So just learn this. And they were just practicing until you could do it in your sleep, which is what they wanted you to learn. They wanted you to be able to do muscle memory. And that's what happened. Our first jump was a C-130 at 1,200 feet. And you're in this airplane, and it's loud. You can't hear the instructor, so it's all hand signals. You stand up, and he does this. Doing that meant that you check each other's parachute to make sure that it's packed right, that it looks good, that the cord, the static line that releases your parachute is looking good. And we went, okay, that's still very, very nervous. Start thinking maybe I shouldn't do this. The instructor went around to each trooper and asked, do you still want to jump? You can change your mind right now before we get to the drop zone. But once we get to the drop zone and you're in line, you're going out. So there was one guy that said, I don't want to do it. I can't do it. It's too scary, too terrifying. And so we started talking to the guy. Hey, we just went through 3 weeks of hell, running, going through all this, and now you're going to change your mind? You went through this for nothing? Come on, if you don't do this, you're going to look back on this and you're going to say, you know what, I should have done that. I should have gone. So we did finally talk him into it, put him in front of me, and kind of push him slowly. So we got to the door, and they opened it up, and then there's blue sky, and 1,200 feet down is the ground. Then I start thinking, maybe I should have. It was too late then, right? So what I did then is I told myself, I want to do this, and it's going to be okay, but I got to make sure that I do not close my eyes when I jump out. There was a couple of guys that had done it, and they had closed their eyes, so that, you just automatically, you're doing something so terrifying, you close your eyes. I said, I keep my eyes open when I jump. I want to make sure that the first jump, at least the first jump, they're going to be fine with it. At least the first jump, keep your eyes open, see what you're going to see. So that's what I did. Jumped out, kept my eyes open. I don't know why, when I think back, but all of a sudden I see my feet up in the air. I see the airplane leaving, and all of a sudden the chute opens, and I went, okay, everything's working. Look up, check, make sure everything's working right. You got the risers, things are cool, and then it gets real quiet. As you're floating down to 1,200 feet, it's quiet, it's serene, very silent, and you just kind of look around and you're like, wow, this is pretty cool. This is not bad, You got 4 more to go. And then as you get closer and closer to the ground, it starts getting faster and faster, and you're not floating. But it felt like you were floating on a parachute, but now you start to realize you're not. You're coming down a pretty good cliff. So, hit the ground, it's like jumping out of a second story window when you get it. And you're coming at an angle under the wind. And then you gotta remember that PLF, parachute landing form. So I remember that we feed it into you. So landed fine. It hit hard, of course, so it did fine. But that was my experience in Fort Benning, Georgia, in jump school. Did 4 more jumps. They went okay. Everything was fine. There's always a few that didn't land correctly. Broken ankle, twisted knees, broken legs, things like that. That was part. You signed up for this, so this is what may happen. But I was very fortunate. Made it through. One of the guys that was there was a staff sergeant. One was jumping, and his first jump, he sprained his ankle. He just swelled up like this. So he's got 4 more to go. Now you could say, well, I can't jump anymore. It looks like it's broken or dislocated. But again, you go through all that training, you don't want to stop. So he wrapped up his ankle as tight as he could, get that boot on. He did 4 more jumps like that. So, yeah, it's just, if you want to do it, you do it. This is the training where we're getting, and I love doing it, and I still do. In fact, I've jumped since then, so I did enjoy it. I still do enjoy it. Yes. Before Vietnam, they had sent me to, after Fort Benning, Georgia. After jump school, they had sent me to California first, to Fort Ord, California Army Hospital. Spent a couple of months there, near Carmel and San Jose. paradise, paradise. Fort Ord was just wonderful. In the hospital there, worked 8 to 4, sometimes 4 to midnight, but it was like a regular job, and things were just going fine. Again, it was like being on vacation. It was just one of the most wonderful places I've ever been in. Again, nobody's yelling at you. This is your job. You do your job. You go to Ward D, there's where I was at. Cleaning wounds, and kind of minor things like that, blood pressures, temperatures, things like that. It was great. Loved it. And then late October, got orders for Vietnam. So that at least, when I think back now, at least I had that couple of months of being in a place that was pretty nice. And that was Fort Ord, California. It's gone now, the hospital's gone. But I have fond memories of being there. And I kept those fond memories when I got to Vietnam on Fort Ord. So, Vietnam, December 10th, 69, excuse me, I arrived in Vietnam. Vietnam was, what can I say, traumatic. It was life-changing. It was a cultural shock. I had never been out of the state of Wisconsin, much less out of the country. So being in a foreign land, halfway around the world, and seeing a whole different culture, listening to a whole different language, and hot, humid, smelly, and dangerous. That was Vietnam, and first being there. And then was assigned to the 101st Airborne Division Recon Unit as a combat medic. Life-changing. So, first arriving in Vietnam, first 2 weeks that I was there, and most of us, in that time, we had to go through orientation to teach us about the culture, the language, the traditions, the topography, and what was expected of us as an American soldier. To be respectful of the people, because they were not part of the war, just were civilians. And so we learned the traditions and some of the culture, so we didn't say anything badly or show a bad example of what an American is. Be respectful of these people. And I did. I was very respectful of these people. You could see they didn't want the war. They were just civilians trying to live a life. And then you have this war all around them, just disrupting their life, the way they were doing things, just very disruptive, very scary for them. I can imagine if they had been going through this war decades. And here we are again, starting being in this country with these soldiers and F-4 Phantoms, this artillery, and gunships. Just very scary for me. Imagine how scary it was for them. So that very life-changing for me. But it got worse. Combat. I was assigned to a recon unit. If you look at the slide, we worked in 8-man teams, sometimes a little bit more, maybe a 9-man team, sometimes a 6-man team. But we were sent out to the jungle in a small squad. We did reconnaissance. We observed, we recorded, and then we reported back to headquarters of what we saw. If it was enemy soldiers, how many, what kind of weapons were they carrying, and where were they going, And whenever we went out on a mission, one of the things they always told us is look for any prisoners of war. If you see anybody that look like a prisoner of war, make contact. But as a recon unit, we weren't supposed to make contact with the enemy. We were just there to observe, again, record, and report. But when you're in enemy territory, we were in the Ishal Valley. Excuse me. When you're in enemy territory, this is where they put you. They take you in a helicopter, put you out deep into the jungle, and this is where you do your reconnaissance. So you're not supposed to, you're trying not to make contact with the enemy, but you're in enemy territory. Ashal Valley was called the Valley of Death. It was 20 miles long, maybe a mile wide. It was owned by the Vietnamese, North Vietnamese soldiers. They had battalions there. They had companies there, regiments. They owned that land, and we were trespassers. And here we are, trying to find out how many there were there, and what were they doing, and what were they planning. And again, we tried not to make contact, but we would often be ambushed. And we were out there sometimes for 3 weeks, come back for a week, and then out of it. So, again, try not to make contact, but it's nearly impossible. Too many enemy out there. There were times when we could avoid the enemy, but you could hear them. We were also very quiet. 6, 7, 8 man teams, hand signals, whispering, that's all. And we go through the jungle, we would stop every 20 meters and listen. To see if there was anybody coming. If we hear somebody coming, we go into the bushes of the jungle, and we were wearing camouflage clothing, and we would just kind of blend into the jungle and stay real quiet as they walked by. Usually they were 10 or 12 of them. Usually Viet Cong or North Vietnamese Army soldiers. You could tell by what they were wearing and how many weapons they had. Viet Cong had a rifle, AK-47, maybe they had 2 or 3 magazines at the most, so they couldn't put up a big fight. The NVA, they were soldiers. They were veteran soldiers. They were combat soldiers. They had a lot of weapons on them. They were just as prepared as we were. And just as many magazines and the AK-47s. We blend into the jungle, let them walk by. And when you see the enemy 10 feet away, walking by with AK-47, and you're trying to stay as quiet as you can, it's hard to describe that feeling, feeling of terror, that feeling that don't sneeze, don't cough, don't breathe. If they might hear you, and if they hear you, you will be dead. And that would happen every so often. You let them go by. And that was a good one. No contact, no shooting. There was other times they would want to, we would be ambushed. They would hear us coming, or they would be set up in ambush as we walked into it. Then that's when being a combat medic was really challenging. Now, the thing about being a combat medic that they cannot teach you is that how every soldier is going to react when the shooting starts. And how he's going to react if he gets wounded. Some soldiers would be shot once or twice, and you could not tell. Very calm. Sitting there, laying there, whatever, I would go over by them and treat them. And they would be calm as can be. Easier then to handle, easier to treat. They're not fighting. Others, would panic, would scream, yell, and get me out of here, I'm hurt, I'm in pain. And so you got to deal with it. And that would make it harder for me to treat them. Because now they're fighting me and you want to get out of there, and I can, well, especially if there's a firefight going on, when the shooting starts, it's chaos, chaos. It's loud, it's explosions, there's people yelling, people swearing, people screaming, people are calling out medic, Frank is hit, medic, Tom's hit. It's the other nightmare of a medic, when you have multiple injuries. If you have one guy, you can handle it. Two, okay. 3, 4, now you have to do triage. And now the thing about it, I know these men very well. I knew their wives' names, I knew their sisters, their fiancés, their girlfriends, where they were from, their fear, and all of them wanted to go home. And it's hard as a combat medic. I know these people, I want to take care of them, and I can't. Not everyone. Not everyone. So that's the other thing about being a combat medic is, how do you make those choices? Who am I going to take care of first? Frank has got a wife and 2 kids. Dan is single. Who's hurt more? Frank is right here wounded. Tom is 30 feet away. Tom is yelling and screaming, and he's hurt and he's dying. I go, Tom, over here. It's very traumatic for a combat medic to make those choices. The things they don't teach you, they can't teach you. And how do you react to it? You do the best you can. That's all you can do. Find who is hurt the most, who's dead, you can't help. And that was a very tough thing for me as a combat medic, is treating these people, especially when you got multiple injuries, multiple casualties. And again, everybody's different. Some panic, some are in pain, some want you to do something right now. And what do? And you take care of one, hey, I have to leave you because I got to go over there and help Frank. And if don't leave me, stay here with me. I need you here now. I said, I can't stay here. I got to go help Frank. He's hurt too. So you have to make those tough decisions. But that's your job. You can take care of just one, there are 2 or 3 that are wounded. And some are dying. So what do you do then? Ones that are dying. The ones you know, they're your friends. So it's a tough occupation. It's a tough MOS. Things they don't tell you and teach you in medical school about those decisions of life and death. And what are you going to do? And how do you deal with it? That's another story. And as you see here, Firebase Bastogne. That's the fire base that we were working out of, on the top of a hill that had been defoliaged with napalm and Agent Orange to get rid of all the grass and shrubs, and trees were napalm and dynamited, and they made that whole mountain bald. So we could get our bunker up there, and there was a huge fire base, artillery base on top of the hill, and that we had helicopter command up there. We had 300 soldiers up there, artillery, 105s, 155s, the helicopter pads, we had helicopters coming in. That's what we worked on them. Helicopters would pick up us up there and they take us out into the jungle and bring us back. So, that was Fire Base Gaston. It was home. Even though it was a muddy, smelly mountaintop, whenever we got back, we felt comfortable, we were at home, we felt safe. And I always have fond memories of Fire Base Gaston. Fire Base Gaston was pretty far north. We were up near the DMZ, and you know, deep in enemy territory. In near Quang Tri, anything up north was Quezon. The only others that were up there with us was 101st was the 1st and 3rd Marine Division. We're up there in that area. It was a very dangerous area. Again, the enemy controlled that area. And we were there to try to take that control away from them. And it wasn't easy. That we had a difficult time doing it. We lost a lot of people too. Okay, Fire Base Henderson. I said something. Let me take you back. May 5th, 1970. Well, I'll take you back one more day before that. May 4th, 1970. We have been in-country R&R. We have been into a lot of action, seen a lot of combat, so they took us out of there and took us to called China Beach. It's like China Beach. It's a place to relax and go swimming, play volleyball. We had 3 days there, so we kind of cooled down and relaxed because we needed it. We had seen a lot of combat, and we had lost a lot of guys, so we needed to get away from that tension, that stress that we were under. And we lost people that we had loved dearly, and that was kind of hard to take. So, take you out of combat, which 3 days to relax, which we did. We had a good time, and then after 3 days, they sent us. Our last day was May 4th. We left that paradise and we were sent to Fire Base Henderson. That was up in near Quang Tri, near the DMZ. The DMZ, what Quang Tri was, short distance, maybe 25 miles from the border. The DMZ was just an imaginary line that separated North Vietnam from South Vietnam at that time. And that's where a lot of the enemy soldiers would come through because of the Ho Chi Minh Trail, came through the A Shaw Valley. So there was a lot of enemy activity. So they sent us up to Fire Base Henderson near Quang Tri, which was just, again, it was the enemy owned that land, that area. Again, they had battalions there, companies. They were combat veteran soldiers, those North Vietnamese soldiers. And that's where they sent us. They sent us to Fire Base Henderson. That was a temporary artillery base that they were using to support the infantry. And we needed, obviously, they needed security there. So they were taking another secure platoon out of there, and we replaced them on May 5th. So when we got to Fire Base Henderson on May 5th, in the morning of, Lieutenant Hawley, who was the platoon commander, first thing he said, this is a terrible fire base. The jungle was right up to the artillery. There was very little that had been done to remove that brush from around that fire base. It was a terrible base to protect. And he could see that, and he got a meeting together with him, Lieutenant Hawley, Sergeant Snyder, myself, and the other squad leaders, got together and discussed what we were gonna do there on the 5th of May. So we started burning some of the brush, putting out more concertina wire, razor sharp wire, barbed wire, because we needed to get that perimeter further away from the artillery guns and the bunkers. The brush and that jungle was just too close. Anybody could sneak up on you even in daytime, and you wouldn't know. So we needed to get rid of that jungle and that brush, and that's what we were gonna do. And we did some of that on May 5th. We did some of that on May 5th, some of the burning the barbed wire, and try to make it a little bit more safer, a little bit more clear, give us some space from that perimeter to where we were and their bunkers. So we had to dig, again, we dug deeper foxholes that were there. They weren't deep enough. We didn't think they were deep enough, just in case it was an attack. So all day long on May 5th, we were digging and cleaning and trying to set up a safer perimeter for us. And then the next day, what we were going to do the next day is to do more of the same, more of the same. Because it just wasn't good enough that first day that we were there, which was done. The lieutenant wasn't happy with it, and Sergeant Snyder wasn't happy with it. None of us were actually happy with it. So we needed to do more of that clearing. And that's what we were going to do. So May 6th, the morning of, I was on watch, 5 a.m. I was sitting there by my bunker, looking out, waiting for daylight, for the sun to rise. And I looked at my watch, and it said 5 a.m. And there was a huge explosion, just on the west side of the hill. And we happened to be with the other men that we were on the east side of the hill. The explosion came on the west side of the hill, then all hell broke loose. And there was a battalion-sized enemy force that attacked us that morning, about 300 enemy soldiers. And there was a recon platoon that was protecting that section of that hill on Firebase, which was real close to where the artillery was, and the artillery ammo dump. So we got 300 soldiers and about 20 recon soldiers trying to defend against 300. I don't know. It was terrifying, terrifying. And when I think about it, I can just see it happening right now. I could see in front of me at least 30 soldiers coming up with AK-47s shooting and RPGs, and we were firing back. It didn't seem to be doing any good. So because then we breached the perimeter. Again, there wasn't much of a perimeter set up. We were hoping to do more of that the next day. And this was the next day, but 5 o'clock in the morning. So we had it well planned out, I have to say. Whoever was in charge of that attack had it well planned out. They knew where they needed to go. Their vision was to attack and destroy the ammo dump. The ammo dump had 155 shells, 105 shells, high explosive shells, some hand grenade cases and pallets of hand grenades, ammunition, and they set fire to it. They set fire to it, and it started to explode. Explosions were going off, we were still being attacked. A lot of screaming, a lot of yelling, a lot of swearing, a lot of dying. Yeah, a lot of dying. Firebase Henderson will always be one of marks in your life that you never forget. And that happened in May 1970, and here is what, 2021. But I remembered it clearly. They continued to attack on the north side of the hill that were recon, well, the other 15 guys that recon were on that side of the hill. They took the brunt of that attack. We had about 15, 20 guys attacking us, but they had a whole battalion, regiment hitting them on that side. With RPGs, AK-47s, everything they had, they were attacking this side of the hill. And recon fought. Not one man backed down. They, how can I explain it? They stood their ground. They could have run. But the one thing about combat is you have to stay in control. There's a real thin line between panic and staying in control. You panic, you're going to get yourself killed. Combat, now you can't make no mistakes. In combat, you'll get yourself killed. If you panic, if you run, you turn around, if you just start screaming or whatever, you will be. We cannot panic. But it's easy to say that right now, but it's a thin line. Panic, stay in control. Stay in control, panic. Panic, you will die. But it's very difficult to stay in control when your body's telling you to run. But if you stay, you will die. And it will not be a pleasant death. So, staying in control. And that's what they did. That's what recon did. Against those odds, they stayed in control. Nobody ran. They stayed and fought until they were overrun, overpowered, and they were all killed. But maybe 3 survivors on that side of the hill. All friends of mine, dear friends of mine. One I can tell you was, his name was Ken Shooting. Well, the shooting was still going on, and it's dark, right? They're throwing up flares to light the place up, but the flares just make shadows, and it didn't do any good. So you see green tracers, they use green tracers, we use red tracers. Lots of green tracers going on that morning. I mean, there was thousands of rounds being fired. RPGs, we were getting mortared also. So as it kind of calmed down a little, it would calm down and then start up again, calm down and start up. I was able to get around to the other side. The guys that I was with were okay. And on the other side, I could hear screaming going on and a lot of shooting going on. So I crawled myself over. It was a very dear friend of mine there, Ed Besson. Ed was from Milwaukee. We were very good friends. We were going to come back home together. We had talked. We had talked about it a lot. And when we got home together, and we were going to go to the brewery, and the brewers had just started there, to Packer games and cookouts, all this cool stuff that we were going to do together, right? Okay, and poor Ed is on the other side taking a lot of lead, a lot of explosions. I got to Ed, he was badly wounded. And again, his house that soldier reacted to those wounds. Ed was severely wounded. I won't go into what kind of wounds he had. He was severe. He should have been dead. When I got to him, I thought, he would die in any second. He was just so severely wounded. But there he was. I hesitated going to Ed. Ed was down the hill, in an open area, laying there, and shooting all around. Where Ed was, there was nowhere to hide. He's my friend. I'm a medic. I help him. How do you decide? Panic, control. Panic, control. So, I stayed in control. I wanted to. I needed to get out there. So I crawled down there. I got the head. I thought he was dead. I got the head. I turned him over. He looked up at me and he said, I knew you'd come. And I felt guilty for a long time because I didn't want to come. I didn't want to go down. I was going to get killed. Panic, control, big line, very thin line. And you go back and forth. You know, when I'm crawling down there, I'm panicking. Okay, stay in control, stay in control. Keep going, keep going. And that's when I was able to be with him up until he died. I got to him, let's see, 6 o'clock in the morning. Finally got to where he was. Talked to him, dragged him up behind some sandbags to protect him, and talked to him, tried to keep him going. And one of the things that medics have, they don't teach you, is that you have a bag of tricks that you use. For each individual is different. Some you can yell at and say, come on, you can make it, you can do it, come on, you'll be all right. But a trauma dressing, okay. Others, you're a little more softer, you say, hey, it's gonna be all right. Your wife, think about your wife, think about your girlfriend, just hang in there, we're gonna be good, we're gonna be good. Just hang in there with me, just hang in there with me, and keep talking, encouragement is some of the tricks here. And then, the last bag of tricks, the last thing that was in my bag, when I saw someone that I was losing, a friend, someone I knew, and I was losing them, I could see it, that the light in their eyes was starting to flicker, and it was starting to fade, and I could see them going limp. And I go, I would barter with God. I say, God, come on, give me a break. 20 years old, 20 years old. Why are you digging them? Can't you not find a 95-year-old man that's dying somewhere? Take him, 20 years old. So he parted with God. I was always losing. Next one, parted with God again. From one to the next. And when that didn't help, the last thing I had, the last thing I had is left, the cabin. I knew they were dying. I was losing them. I said, what I could do? He talked to God. He wasn't listening. I said, I got closer to the ear. I said, yeah, you have $1 million wound. You're going home. $1 million wound. No more pain for you. You're going to go home. You're going to be with God. And you can figure. We were doing that I was losing. Hey, you have $1 million wound. You're going home. I'm not paying. You get your helicopter, get you out of here. 2 weeks from now, you'll be home, on the court meal, relaxing with your family, laying down a wounded. No more fighting. No more pain. You're gonna be home in a couple of weeks. Last thing you heard. Last thing you heard. One. Smile. Smile. And then died. How that medic. From the company. I was living. So, one of the toughest jobs. Come back there. Something they don't teach you in school. They can't. You don't know. One of the things I was afraid of is how was I going to react to this? How was I going to react to the shooting? Was I going to be able to do my job? Was I going to be able to run to them and help them? Was I going to freeze, panic, and not help? And then lose these guys? Panic, control. Panic and control. And it's hard to explain to someone that terror is so scared. So scared that none of us wanted to die. And here you are, putting yourself in harm's way. How do you deal with it? Panic, control. And you're there for those guys. And when you're losing them, all I had left is to tell them that they were alone. Hey, you're the dying wounded. You're going home now. No more fighting. You got it made. You got it made. You're going home. You died. So, very tough to be a combat vet. But I was a good combat vet. It was a very good countdown. The challenges were difficult. There were times I didn't want to go out there. We were getting shot at. People weren't shooting at, they were shooting at me. They wanted to kill me. You know. I still had to go out there. Is there. You know. Ben is there. Uncle Ben when he's gone. It's really difficult. It's what I did. You know, I did well. And when I couldn't help them, I did it. I did. The last thing before they died, I wanted to tell them that they were going to go home. They had me lay down a wound. And we were fighting. And I saw someone smile and then die. Okay, go to the next one. Well, that's when I came to town that night. Oh, did get wounded. Barnabas Anderson. Again, being wounded, and it was a serious wound, got shot in the head, bleeding profusely. As a medic, I know what I had to do. I had used up all my trauma dressings for a lot of these guys that were out there that were wounded. I took my t-shirt and ripped it, made a little ball, pushed it into the hole in my head, and took another piece of t-shirt and made a bandana out of it. Tied it off to stop the bleeding, and continued doing my job. Continued doing my job because that's what it was. I was trained to do, this is what I'm going to do, these are my buddies, these are my friends, these are people I love. These are the people I want to make sure they get home. I want them to go home. It's my responsibility, which is a huge responsibility. And didn't realize that in combat medical school. I forgot about that word. That responsibility on my shoulders. Save everybody. You have to save them. couldn't. It wouldn't let me. So, I still talk about religion and God. I still angry at God for not bothering me, not helping me out, not helping them out. Yeah. You know, that's combat, that's war. Unfair, very unfair.
I think
Well, out of time. So that is my story. There's many more stories that I have. But I wanted to touch base on 5 days in your set.
about 5 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll finish here now. If there's any questions that are out there that you might be. No questions? All right, well, that's good. It was, for me, life-changing. Yes.
When you got wounded, were you then evac back stateside, or what happened then?
No, which is interesting because when I got wounded, I was transported to a Navy hospital because the Army hospitals have been filled. But it was a bad day for Indian Vietnam at that time. A lot of wounded, a lot of killed. Hospitals were filling up. The only place they could send me was to a Navy hospital. And I stayed in the Navy hospital. The bad thing about being there was that nobody knew where I was. So they knock on the door of my mother's house. Your son is missing in action. My poor mom. But once I got better at the Navy hospital, I went back to my unit. When I was at Navy hospital, they told me, Doc, you got $1 million wound, you gotta go home. Well, that didn't happen. I got back to my unit, they still needed medics out there. We were losing a lot of medics. So I went back out to the field, continued that. But, yeah, it's,
How long did you stay in that?
1 year in Vietnam. 11 months, 17 days in Vietnam. So, there was life-changing. And because of that, and the things that I do now as a civilian, and remember all those that died on Firebase Anderson, very good friends. Ed Besser from Milwaukee, I met his family, they wanted to know me, wanted to know what had happened that day with their son. I have tried to live a life worthy of their sacrifice. I did not want to waste my life. Here I had this chance, this incredible stroke of luck or divine intervention, whatever, that I made it through Henderson and all the other battles that I was in. A lot of combat. Made it back home. And for me to come back home alive after so many, that I see so many die, would have been a travesty to waste my life. And I think there's a Ryan, the World War II movie, Saving Private Ryan, where that guy says, did I get live a good life? Or did I waste it? You know, for me, I had to live a good life. I mean, these young guys didn't got a chance to live their lives with their girlfriends, fiancés, their wives, never saw their kids born. Gone. And you never got a chance to live.
What did you do after you left Guam?
Well, after civilian life, fire department, firefighter, paramedic. Again, group of guys, brothers and sisters, female firefighters. So I was with the guys again, and with the girls again, working for a common cause, help people who were injured, save their lives. And it was 27 years as a firefighter, best years of that. I mean, I was giving back to the community, I was saving lives, because And realistically, and I think back is, that I could say, I should have done this, I should have done that, but can't. You're in the jungle, and you're trying to get a helicopter to come in and just listen up. Takes 20 minutes, 25 minutes. They didn't have 25 minutes. They didn't have 5. And that's why you encourage you. Hang in there. Connie's waiting for you. Your wife's pregnant, she's gonna have a baby. Come on, you can hang in there a little longer. Ed hung in there. He was wounded at 5:30 in the morning. He died at 20 minutes after 7. So for almost 2 hours, he hung in there with encouragement. Hang in there, talk about his family, talk to his dad, talk to his wife. But the spirit is strong, but the body was just too much damage. Couldn't hang on. Oh, but so close. So close. And one of the people that helped us on Firebase Henderson was a guy named Ray Bolden. Ray Bolden was a Cobra pilot. And Ray Bolden did a talk here, spoke here, right?
I was here for that.
Yeah. Ray, me and Ray, Ray was there to help us with that on Firebase Henderson. He was like to help Cobra. And Ray Bolden was also the Secretary of the Department of Veterans Affairs for Wisconsin. So me and Ray go back to Firebase Henderson. And talking to him, he remembers, and he told me this, he said, I'm sorry I couldn't help. The fog was so thick that nobody could help us. Helicopters couldn't fly in that soup. So you could hear them flying around. The medevacs, the dust-offs, the cobras were flying all around us, but they couldn't help us because of the fog. So he said, I'm sorry I couldn't help. I said, Ray, you were trying to. That's all you could do. So that's my story. And again, my name is George Banda, and I'm a combat medic.